We are back with National Careers Week, and as you can see, I'm joined by four very special guests on the channel today, and we're going to be learning lots. So I think we should just get started with some introductions so that the audience know who you are. So whoever wants to go first, it's absolutely fine, and work around the room. Can you each introduce yourself and explain what it is that you currently do?
Well, I'm Lewis Trout. I'm a graduate estimator in the Highways division of M Group, and essentially my job just involves a lot of bidding on projects which are put forward by sort of county councils or national highways, and we bid on these tenders and then hope to provide a sort of good service. And yeah,
Amazing, thank you. Who wants to go next?
Hi, my name's Jade. I'm currently working as a graduate data engineer at Callisto, which is in the energy division of M Group. I started the role in September, and since then I've been working on developing a range of products and services with the help of data.
Amazing, thank you.
My name is Kanujan.
Okay, who's
I studied
next?
at University of Portsmouth, where I graduated with a first class degree in civil engineering. During my time there, I completed a placement year at CRL Concrete Repairs Limited, which gave me valuable hands-on experience in the industry. Currently, I work as a graduate engineer at Diane Butler, part of M Group. My role involves assisting my project manager in setting up sites, handling essential paperwork, supervising work on site, and most importantly, building a network within the industry. At the moment, I'm working on the rail side of the business, but I will be rotating towards the aviation sector to gain a broad experience.
Exciting, thank you.
So finally, finally it's me. So my name is Eva Liv. I'm currently a graduate civil engineer. I work for Caledonian Water Alliance, which is part of M Group, and we're co-joined with AECOM. I currently work on site in Edinburgh in the delivery for wastewater for one of the big Scottish water projects that we currently have.
Exciting. Well, thank you so much to all of you for coming on today. You know, I said earlier we've got a lot to get through and we've got a lot to learn. And I think from my perspective, something that young people like to hear about is that initial interest, that initial spark that you thought, do you know what, I want to get into the industry or go down the career path that you've gone down. So the question is, what first sparked your interest into the industry? Jade, can we start with you on this one?
Yeah, of course. So I first gravitated towards a data career in university. I did a maths degree, and this involved a lot of statistic modules. And it's here that I kind of saw that I really enjoyed working with data. Um, After kind of seeing that I did enjoy that aspect, I then went on to enroll in a few different coding courses just to kind of develop these skills. And this kind of assured me that I kind of wanted to go into a more data engineering role. And I suppose I chose working in energy because it is an industry with a lot of opportunity and it's quite an exciting time for it. So that's why I decided to pursue this career path.
I think what's really interesting is, you've got to think back to when you're in like secondary school. So maybe 15, 16, thinking about careers and, what it is that you're going to do. And there'll be young people that'll be watching today thinking, I've got an interest in maths, but actually, what can I do with that? What careers can I go into because I've got a passion for maths? And it's really interesting that, you talk about your journey, Jade, and kind of what sparked your interest, because that allows then the young people to understand, oh, actually, have you thought about working with data? Have you thought about working in this industry? Which I think is really crucial for today. So thank you for that. Okay, let's move on then. So same question, and really think about what it is that when you think right back to, actually, this is what I want to do and I'm in this industry and I want to come into this industry. Eva, over to you. What was that spark?
So I think the kind of initial spark was from a very young age. I've always kind of been like interested with things like taking things apart. You know, as a kid, you know, breaking things as well. And I feel like obviously that kind of input, putting it together. So I feel like obviously that was kind of the kind of initial idea of kind of hands-on stuff. Um, Obviously, when I mentioned earlier, I went and done electrical engineering. But obviously this differs to civil engineering. But the difference mainly is with civil engineering, I'm more kind of hands-on as opposed to just working in the office and just doing calculations, which didn't really spark my interest that much compared to obviously working on site.
And I think from my perspective, when we think about, again, similar to kind of what I was saying about Jade, is that although quite young for you, that recognition of when you look back about when you were younger and breaking things, putting them back together, and that interest, it's something that I think everybody needs to do in their lives, is think about what is it that you enjoy doing, and I think we're a long time working. Some might say unfortunately, some might say fortunately. I'm not too sure. I'm on the fence with that one. But we are a long time working. You need to be doing something that really does interest you. So interesting about that. Okay, so let's go on to our next panel member. And I think again, it is all about that introduction, that first bit. What is it that actually made me go, this is what I want to do? So Lewis, over to you. Tell me more.
Yeah, I must admit, I've always been interested in sort of large infrastructure projects. I think they're sort of like really interesting in terms of how things actually get done. And I must admit, like after I graduated, there was always a bit of time where I was thinking, like, what do I actually do? I had a bit of a background in private equity, and then I was just sort of looking through sort of job listings, and I found lots which were related to sort of large infrastructure companies and projects and such. And I just found it was, yeah, again, really interesting. I've read a book called How Big Things Get Done, and it was just essentially a sort of a deep dive into like how big infrastructure projects get pulled off really, and I found that really interesting, and it kind of really did sort of shape sort of what I wanted to do. So now I'm kind of do quite a lot of like financial modeling and sort of risk planning surrounding sort of the different bids we go for, and altogether I think it's sort of really complemented sort of my existing sort of skill set.
So interesting as well, though, isn't it? Because you do go past, like, let's say, for example, we'll take a building as something that maybe young people they see a lot of. That maybe they're in school, they're in university, wherever they are, they're in college, sixth form, whatever part they're in a building, and a lot of people will have that interest, won't they? Is actually how did this even come about? And it's interesting that then going to work in an industry that will create those things, which is exciting. Okay, last but not least on this question, Kanujan, what would you say?
Where do I start? I've always been interested in engineering, whether it's building new buildings, restoring old structures, working on the railway infrastructure. It's the ability to take the technical drawings and bring them into life, into the real world. That's something really excites me, something about it. I enjoy the problem solving aspects, the hands on work, and seeing the projects just take shape from start to finish. Engineering just allows me to be part of something that improves the infrastructure and makes a lasting impact.
Thank you so much for all of you for coming on today and for telling us about that spark, that interest that kind of came into the industry, which is I think is really key for young people to know, and actually thinking about what it is that they're doing and taking that forward. Now we're going to go into a bit more of a deep dive now about career journeys and kind of key decisions as well that you've all made along the way. Before we went live today, what we did was we caught up about your journeys and things like that, and I've picked out some specifics that I want to go a little bit further into for our viewers today. So, Eva, I want to start with you. So, you switched degrees and you even pursued a postgraduate diploma before securing your current role. For me, when you think about that, it is a lot, isn't it? You kind of on one path, and then you think, actually, no, this is. So I want to do something different. What do you think kept you motivated during that time?
Uh, okay, it's sometimes that's quite hard to answer, but I believe it's the kind of determination one to complete what I originally started, which would be the degree, but at the same time it's the kind of passion that you have to obviously make a difference, especially like in civil engineering where the things we do are long lasting things, and I think obviously that kind of gives you that push, that motivation to pursue that career.
So I suppose now that you're in your career, you're working now. What do you go home and I suppose, and a kind of question to the room to be fair, but do you go home and think, what, I've actually done something that's being put towards a much bigger thing. So you've got to have that job satisfaction when you leave for the day. Would you agree with that?
I personally think yes, because obviously the current project I'm working on, it does affect a lot of people when it comes to the wastewater aspect in Edinburgh. So with the project itself, it will actually help people in a sense where their houses are not going to be flooded anymore with wastewater. So that's obviously a very big implication to them, and I feel obviously that does help them a lot.
Absolutely, and that's something that you're contributing to. And I think a lot of people will want to go to work and they'll want to do something that's meaningful. You know, that's actually going to either be making a change or discovering something, whatever it is. So to know that you are going into work and you are working to for a bigger impact, I think is just really key and really exciting that you've shared that with us today. So thank you. And I want to move on now to Jade. So again, when we was catching up, you were talking about that you were working, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're working on a gas and balance service.
Mhm.
How important do you think, and along that you with some certification, how important do you think that continually learning and taking on those certificates and that extra learning has been in your career so far?
I think it's been really important to me in my career, especially since I'm quite new to the role. I think just that continuous learning really allows you to develop those skills and knowledge that you need and that you could apply to other things in the future. And also just on top of that, since I'm quite new to the career, I feel like continuous learning allows me to like work with different teams and different colleagues, and that just builds a network to help potentially in future if I want to pursue different options.
So would you recommend then, and again, question to the room, would you recommend to take every opportunity, I suppose, anything that you can be learning within your role, especially when you're kind of new to a role, take every opportunity, absorb all of the information that you can, and that's going to help you, isn't it, with furthering your career in the future.
Yeah, I would say yes to kind of whatever opportunities interest you. Really take advantage of those early days where you are getting opportunities thrown at you left, right, and centre. To an extent, obviously, if it's like overwhelming you and stuff, if you maybe can't cope with that extra work, then that's fair enough. But if you can manage it, I found it's definitely been really beneficial to say yes to those extra opportunities.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, I want to move on to talk about a bit of a bigger topic, to be honest, with yourself, Kanujan, and that's about work experience. I feel like all I hear at the moment is work experience. I either want a work experience from a young person, or I've got a work experience placement. Where do I go to find out more information? Or organisation saying we've got work experience opportunities, and I want to find out because you did a placement year, didn't you, before
Yep.
graduating as an engineer. How do you think, and how important is that industry experience, do you think?
So it's definitely very important. So for me, completing a placement year at CRL Concrete Repairs Limited was a huge advantage in my transition to full-time work. It gave me hands-on experience in the industry, allowing me to see how projects managed on site and how different teams collaborate to deliver successful outcomes. I became familiar with key processes such as site paperwork, health and safety regulations, project planning, which made it easier to step into my role as a graduate engineer for Dye& Butler part of M Group. The placement the placement year also helped me to develop confidence in professional settings. I learned how to communicate effectively with site teams, engineers, project managers, and even clients, which is crucial for my current role. Additionally, having the early exposure to the real-world engineering challenges meant that when I started at Dyer Butler, I already had a strong foundation to build up on. Overall, the placement year gave me a head start by bridging the gap between university learning and industry practice, making my transition into full-time work much smoother.
Amazing, thank you. Now, I'm conscious of time, and Lewis, I want to talk to you about there's a stereotype, I think, that when you make a decision to maybe go to university or whatever pathway that it is, because there's literally hundreds, I feel like there's pathways that you can get into a career, but a stereotype, no matter what pathway, is that Once you're on it, you have to complete it, and you can't really change, or you can't do one thing and then actually it leads to a different career. And I kind of get that vibe from yourself when it comes to the fact that you studied history, but you're now working as a graduate estimator. How did you make that career switch? And tell us about what kind of skills that you took from that history and studying history over to what it is that you're doing now.
Yeah, no, I must admit, I'll be the first to admit it was a bit of a segue. But I think there is actually quite a lot of skills that translate quite well over. I think ultimately in this industry, sort of attention to detail and sort of solid communication skills will always be sort of very helpful. And just being able to sort of read in between the lines and sort of ensure that we get the best outcomes for both M Group as well as our sort of partners. I think that's really something that sort of translated quite well across from my history degree. I must admit, I did not fancy being a history teacher, so hence graduate estimating sounded very nice to me.
Interesting, and it isn't for the fact of that you kind of wanted to do history. You know, yes, you say it's a segue, but still, it's something that you enjoyed, and I think that's something that, as I've been speaking to the four of you, you know, you've picked something and you've been doing things previously that you enjoy, and then going into work with something that you enjoy. Again, a long time working, so it has to be something that you want to come in and do, basically, in my opinion. So thank you for that. And also talking about the skills as well, always thinking about, and my advice to anybody, and we're going to come on to advice later on, but my advice to anybody would be think about what it is that you're doing now and thinking about what skills and what experiences are you taking away from that. Okay, thank you so much for doing that bit of a deeper dive into your career journeys. Now, I am conscious of time. We've not got a lot of time left. So what I'm going to do is do some quick fire round questions. So I'm going to ask the question, and then if you can just anybody that wants to answer, you know, come back to me with your answer, and then we'll kind of go around the room. So the first question, and it's all about challenges and learning experiences, this section. And the first question is, what has been the biggest challenge in your career so far? And mainly, how did you overcome that? So out to the room, whoever wants to jump in.
I think on a recent bid we actually did, which was in Hertfordshire, which actually where I live. So we're bidding on the Hertfordshire term maintenance contract for the highways. And one, of course, when it comes to sort of bid submission time, it's always quite, it can be quite tense. But I think the way, because there's obviously so much to check, but I think the way sort of we overcame that as a sort of a team, because basically everyone is willing to sort of chip in and help out where necessary. So it made it a very easy environment to sort of flag issues and potential concerns.
Absolutely. Interesting as well, isn't it? And again, it's all about that. How did you overcome, and thinking about that, working with the team, you know, the teamwork there. Let's take that skill from what Lewis has just been saying. Do you have great teamwork skills? Because that's absolutely what everybody needs. Okay, so the next question, and if somebody can jump in and answer, is that many students often worry about entering competitive job markets. What advice would you give to somebody that's, I suppose, trying to stand out, you know, trying to say, this is me, I'm amazing, you should employ me?
I would say for that one, make sure that you practice your interviewing skills. It's a very daunting experience, especially the first time if you've never interviewed before, and it feels quite unnatural. So I think definitely practicing those skills makes a world of difference in an interview. Um, Make sure you've got plenty of anecdotes to kind of talk about, like skills and um like characteristics that you have that would be a benefit. And I would say on top of that, make sure that your CV is in good nick. You can seek advice from like colleges and universities, and I think these are always a, always a great place to go to kind of make sure that your CV is the best that you can be. So those would be my two pieces of advice for the future.
I would like to add a couple points on top. So I would say gain practical experience. So if possible, do a placement year or internship. Have hands-on experience that makes you stand out in these applications. Most importantly, network and build connections. Attend career fairs, industry events. Connect with professionals on LinkedIn. Message them. Can I do this? Can I do that? How do I get there? Tailor your application. So instead of sending the same CV to each company and the cover letter, just customize each, highlight your skills and experience relevant to that specific job. Show enthusiasm and initiative so employees appreciate candidates who are passionate and about their field and willing to go that extra mile to learn and grow. And lastly, I would say work on your soft skills. So that's communication, teamwork, problem solving, and just as important as technical knowledge. Show that you can work well with others and adapt in different situations.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Okay, let's finish off this section with, and maybe Evo, you can answer this one for me, and it's all about thinking about when we're in school, when we're in college, when we're in university. Yes, you're mixing with your peers, but you're then going to work. You're working with professionals. How do you adapt to working with professionals who do have more experience than what it is that you will have?
So yeah, so obviously with coming out of university, obviously you kind of don't really have that much of practical knowledge or experience as opposed to the people who are already working on site. So the way I have adapted, for example, was I constantly just ask questions regarding anything and everything. And the kind of approach that we have is basically no question is a stupid question. So even if you might feel, oh, I probably shouldn't ask this because it's stupid or daft, it's not true, because obviously you don't learn that at university. So it does give you that kind of idea of support that you have from your colleagues as well.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to our last question then. And we're going to go around the room. So we'll do this quick fire. And it's about, I'm not going to lie, possibly one of my favorite bits of any interview. And it's about getting rid of the myths and the stereotypes that people think about, your careers or careers within the industry. So the question is, what's one career myth that you'd like to debunk for students watching this? Lewis, let's start off with you on this one.
Yeah, I think what stands out to me really is just that you're not expected to be 100% capable at what you're doing, especially when you start. And like ultimately, it's a learning process, and people will understand that. Everything you get right first time, of course, is an added bonus, but like obviously, people are realistic with their expectations. It's a learning process for you. It's maybe even a learning process for them when it comes to managing people. So ultimately, people are quite yeah, yeah, accepting of just it takes you time.
Absolutely. Kanujan, over to you.
So I would say a common myth in engineering is all about. They say it's all about maths and technical skills. Well, those are important. Engineering is just more than that. It's about problem solving, communication, teamwork. In the real world, engineers collaborate with different teams, manage projects, and find creative solutions to challenges. Being able to communicate ideas clearly, work with others, adapt to new situations is just as valuable as technical knowledge. So if you're interested in engineering but worried about it's all about numbers and calculations, don't be. There's a lot more to it.
Amazing. Jade, over to you.
I would say the biggest myth I can think of is that you can change your mind about your career. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you can always try different options, always find what you actually enjoy doing. And this applies to your degree or A levels. It's perfectly possible to pursue a career completely unrelated to either of these. Just really pursue what you want to do and that you enjoy, because your career is such a huge part of your life and you need to be happy in that.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Okay, and last but by no means least, Eva, over to you.
So for me, for example, I think one of the myths I would like to debunk would be that once you get your degree, you will get a job right away. That's not 100% sure, although it might happen. And I feel like, people shouldn't be discouraged by not receiving a job on your first interview or your first CV. If you are passionate about something, I think you should stick to it and keep trying, you know, um, and eventually you'll get it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much to the four of you for coming on today and talking to me about what it is that, your journeys have been like and what your roles are like. And I think it's really helpful for anybody, I suppose, that's thinking about a career in the industry to understand what it's actually like and we've managed to touch on a couple of topics today, which is exciting. So thank you so much for coming on today and speaking with me. And for anybody that's watching, if you have any questions for any of our panel members, you can leave them in the live chat, which is just to the right of the video player. Thank you again.